Hey guys, and welcome to the September edition, the delayed edition of Shoe Geeks. And I'm joined with my co-host, Julian Spence, over in Anglesea. How are you going with the knee, Julian? And obviously Bree's due in about 5 or 6 days, so you've got a couple of days of freedom left. How are you spending it?
Doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like we're just like nervous and anxious, and everything is, well, we can't go too far, and we're worried about what's about to happen. So I'm trying to get all my work done so that I can have a few days where I don't have to answer emails or whatever. That would be hard for you, wouldn't it? Did you take your computer to the hospital with you?
No, I didn't actually. We stayed in for 8 days in the hospital as well.
Holy shit.
Yeah, Christine had a bit of obviously it's not worth talking about it now, but I had a few complications which required us to stay for a bit longer. So work wasn't even a thought at the time. So,
okay.
And no doubt Tommy, who's had 2 children already, who's joined with me over in Walker Street Podiatry over in Sydney, and I'm assuming working, not giving people COVID jabs. How are you going at the moment, Tommy?
Yeah, I'm going all right, thanks.
Yep.
Yeah, can't complain.
Here's a bit of a fun fact, mate. You ran more this weekend than I did for the whole week.
Oh, sweet. I like that.
I reckon he's running more than most people.
How about you, Nitta, 2 weeks ago saying you're never running again?
Yeah, that's the norm.
And
so hamstring tear. No, I'm back jogging. It seems to be fine. So, and I've got plenty of new shoes as well to wear at the moment. So,
I think since the last episode, I've had a knee surgery and Nitta's retired and come back within the last time we've recorded.
Yeah, that's it. And Tom, I've briefly communicated with the wife. You've applied for potentially an exemption to travel for a marathon. Is that right?
Ooh. Yeah, keeping options open.
Where at?
Do you want to tell us a bit more?
I entered Valencia. So it's 5th of December. I'd be more inclined to do Melbourne, which is the week after, if I can get there. If it's on, and if I can get there, I'll just stay here and do that.
Makes sense.
But, yeah.
It's going to be a late call, though, I think, to know about Melbourne.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm not going to book anything else until last minute anyway. I've entered, but I'm not going to book flights till last minute.
Well, you've done most of the running, Tom. Tell us what you've been wearing. Tell us how you've been spending your miles. What have you been wearing?
There's nothing new. I was trying to think about it. There's nothing too new or exciting since we last chatted like a month or so ago. I've just been, I guess, for my easy stuff, just rotating through a couple of the ASICS range. So then still using Nova Blast, the Nimbus Lite 2. Really like that shoe. So doing a fair bit in that.
How much do you get out of that shoe, Tom? How much do you get out of that Nimbus Lite 2?
To be honest, I've almost finished my last pair. So I get probably about 500 or maybe 450. Yeah, it's starting. The forefoot's starting to bottom out a bit. I put a sock liner from another shoe into it. It'll probably extend the feeling of the cushion for another 50k. I don't know. It's dying. New Balance. I'm wearing I'm using a bit of the Vongo 5 and the Rebel.
You wouldn't bottom the Vongo out.
What's up?
You wouldn't bottom out the Vongo.
No bottom. No. Vongo's going all right. Yeah.
The V2. You're talking about the Rebel V2, aren't you?
V2.
Yep. And you ran almost 2.5 hours in that today, didn't you?
Yeah.
Remember
got it with you?
Yeah. It's wearing okay.
Hey, that's
I've probably done about.
That's not the Vongo in the Tempo Journal article.
No,
the Pebble one?
You want the Vongo?
No, not the Vongo. The Vongo in the Tempo Journal article, didn't you? Talking about the posting.
The Vongo was in the Tempo article, yeah.
So what makes you wear a Rebel V2 for a 2.5 hour run?
I like to do I like long runs. I mean, today was a bit slow, but usually it's a little bit of a faster long run. I like something a little bit snappier underfoot. So it's just light. So the fact that it's light means you can run a little bit faster in it, I reckon. And the cushion, for me, I know you were saying that you felt like after 45 or so it was bottoming out a bit, but because I hit the whole midsole, I reckon to me it never bottoms out that whole long run. It is nice, soft and light.
Well, I wore it for 80 minutes today, and it did feel really nice to wear it straight away from the get-go because it's so light. But I reckon, after 45 minutes, it was bottoming out a little bit as well. It's half pavement, half dirt. But I reckon when the pace lifts a little bit as well, you don't feel it as much bottoming out. I think it sort of acts better at a slightly faster pace. So, and today for you, that was a slow pace for you. Like you ran about 4.5 minute K pace, which for you for a long run's it's like recovery for you. So that's I was interested to see you're not wearing like a traditional shoe for your longer run, and whether you're just prepping the calves for maybe a more traditional flat in Vienna. I'm not sure what you're doing, Tommy.
I'm not going back to Mayflies. No.
That'd be a big dog move. Just putting on old flats.
It's a long way to go to wear old flats, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Tom, tell me, like you had a massive workout yesterday, massive day. On Saturday, you ran 42K, I think you did. And then on Sunday, you've pulled out a really minimal type shoe when most people would pull out a shoe that maybe looks after them a bit more. Would you agree? Do you think there's a risk there or what?
So this is when it comes down to experience and listening to my body. So I pulled up from yesterday, like fine, like leg wise. If anything, I'm actually more concerned at the moment with getting the latest and greatest injury, a sacral stressy. So I actually was thinking loading more distally would be better than me putting on a shoe that was, I don't know, too big or structured. I could wear, like, say for example, I could have wore the Vongo 5 and it probably would have been fine and safe. But like this sort of shoe, I don't think, like my calves and my feet feel like really good, touch wood at the moment. So I was happy to wear a slightly less structured, soft shoe because I just felt like lower limb. Just listen to my body basically. If there has been weeks where like calves, probably in the last marathon cycle, like leading into Goldie, where a couple of Saturday sessions, my calves were like rock hard. Not an injury per se, but just like calves rock hard after the session. And so Sunday I would wear a shoe that, I don't know, either a higher drop or more stable, more traditional.
And are you worried by maybe the proximal injury, the sacral stressy, because the workout was so long on Saturday, or were you actually having some back tightness and stuff from wearing?
Not at all. I got no back tight. I'm just I just know that. Like I don't know. Like I'm wearing a lot more super shoe. I mean, it's just we're in the super shoe era. So I traditionally get all my injuries distal. Like I always get foot and ankle stuff. But now that feels all totally fine down there, I'm like, maybe I'm going to get one of these little nice surprise stressies up higher. So,
well, you're working hard at it, doing a 2.5 hour run after a 42K day.
Yeah, it's not like I guess so. But the actual session, the session volume wasn't huge. I've done like much bigger like sessions on a Saturday and still done long runs on Sunday.
Yeah. I have to bring this up. Not everyone hears obviously the group chat we have as well. But you mentioned you did a workout yesterday, I think in the V1 for
Vaporfly,
the next percent, and you said you feel a distinct difference between the Vaporfly version 1 and the version 2, which is that basically just, I guess on paper, a changed upper, and it's not actually a midsole change. So can you explain what's going on there? Perhaps I think people could probably relate to you when you start to explain it. So
I thought there was a difference, like when I got the new shoe, but I hadn't worn, hadn't been able to, I wasn't sure. But basically, last week I did a 2x4K session in the V2, the next percent V2, and then this week I did 2x6K in went back to a new V1, probably similar amount of Ks in each shoe. So I got a new pair of V1s as well, and they're just like substantially different. Like it feels softer. Like the V1 just feels like it absorbs. It's nice and soft, and I can feel the forefoot like deflecting, and then you can actually feel that compression and rebound. And just the V2 just felt like still amazing shoe, but I could just definitely feel less of the midsole compression, basically.
Do you have you had a couple V1s? Have you had a couple V1s?
I've got 3. Yeah, I've had 3.
Did you feel any variation amongst the V1s?
Yeah. One of them is a little bit softer than the other 2, but all 3 are softer than this V2. Yeah, but one in particular is just oddly soft. I just think there is a little bit of variation. I did note that one of those was from a different factory. So I do think that there is like factory variation when they're doing the midsoles. And so they've obviously got specifications. They might just be producing it locally, but the P-backs, it makes sense. Like it's never going to be 100%, I don't think, the same.
How did you know which factory it was from?
Sockliner. Oh. It just says, I don't know the actual factory, it's just the country. So it's just made in. Yeah.
Wait, so you mean the product tag on the sock line?
Yeah. Okay. Exactly.
Yeah. So different country. Yeah. Fair enough.
Different country. Yeah.
Which country?
I think the China one was softer. There was I think Vietnam, and then one of them was China. I actually found that someone came in once to the clinic with a couple of pairs of the Epic React, and she said, "Oh, this one just doesn't feel as good as the old one." And the new one was I don't know why. I looked and I found that one of them was China, one was Vietnam again, and it was the same thing. That newer one was a lot firmer than the old one. Like crazy difference that in that particular case. It was weird.
Yeah, it's interesting. With coming up, like how the different countries have been affected by COVID will affect which shoes are getting produced and which aren't. And a lot of the January, February, March drops of shoes will just not happen. There'll be like a real shortage of footwear in the industry, especially the Vietnamese made shoes, which is like, well, I'm not sure of the exact sort of statistic, but from what we see in store, probably like 90% of shoes now Vietnam. So if you're better off if you're keen or you need to stock up, then get in probably before January because you might go missing or the shoes might go missing.
Is that across brands or is there particular brands that are more affected?
Definitely across brands. We're hearing it from every brand, and it's going to be it's a bit of carnage because like it's only just starting to really shape up because the factories are still shut. They've been shut for like 6-8 weeks or something, and they're not expected to open until maybe October. So it's massive problems.
Yeah. Okay. So Tom, you obviously prefer the softer midsole over the slightly firmer ones.
Yeah.
Got it. Which is sort of why you're not the big Vaporfly fan, but you're a bit of a Meta Speed Sky fan. You'd be wearing that much for your workouts?
The week before, so 3 weeks ago, I wore that one. Yeah, it's up there. Like I actually think it sits for me between the I'm getting real picky here, but it sits between Next Percent V1 and Next Percent V2.
That is ridiculous.
I know it's ridiculous. But it does. It sits there.
Oh my God.
Yeah, fair enough. I still haven't got the magic out of the Meta Speed Sky yet, but I think I reckon it ran half a size small. So I reckon when I got to my my true to size 10, it sort of runs a bit small, and that's the only thing that interferes with it. So, but I agree that sort of is one of those shoes, and there was a paper that was released recently as well, wasn't there, in relation to looking at the economy but comparing super shoes. So, and you read that, Tom. You want to give us a bit of a rundown on that because that probably matches your perceptions a bit as well.
Yeah. So it was a good study. So it was basically like someone's published a study comparing some other super shoes. So some of the other companies have obviously brought out shoes to compete with Vaporfly and Vaporfly. And so until this one came out, it was just studies on the Vaporfly versus other traditional flats. So yeah, this one was quite interesting. So there was seven super shoes, including Alphafly, Vaporfly, Next Percent 2, Metaspeed Sky, Hoka Rocket X, Endorphin Pro, RC Elite.
RC Elite 1.
One, yeah.
That's
RC Elite 1. Yeah, it is.
It's a shame.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a shame they did that one.
Yep. They must have done the study about a year ago. By the time they got it published, the RC2 would have been out at the time, I don't think.
And no Adidas. So
no Adidas, that's right.
As well.
But they used a control shoe. That was the Hyperspeed, wasn't it?
Asics Hyperspeed, yeah. So it's quite interesting. So there was quite a bit of variability and there was like an average, it basically averaged out. There was like 3 tiers. So the top tier in terms of people that were most economical on average was Alphafly, the Vaporfly, and the Asics Metaspeed Sky. So they were top 3. Then I think there was Endorphin Pro and was it Endorphin Pro and
the Endorphin Pro and the RC Elite 1.
RC Elite 1 was
we're
the next second, like the next best, and then the bottom tier was like the Rocket X, the Brooks Hyperion. That's right, Brooks Hyperion Brooks Hyperion Elite.
Yep.
And the control shoe were like the worst performing. Like the Brooks one was like on average like 0.2% better or something than
and that was the Hyperion. That was the Hyperion 2 as well. That was the upgrade from the first one.
That was 2,
so, yeah. So
I was
3 distinct tiers.
Waiting for you to give me shit about the Hoka Rocket X because I like that shoe, but it's like only I think it was 0.5% better than the Hyperspeed.
It's funny because that is exactly how I rate those shoes. Like if you were going to give me a list, like if you said, okay, pick the shoes you'd wear for your next race, pretty much regardless of the distance, if it was 5K or longer, that's the order I'm going in. Alpha, Vapor, the Metaspeed, Saucony, RC1, and I've never even considered really the Hoka or the Brooks shoe. It's just funny. And I think the RC2, if you chucked it in there just based off that, would sit next to the Asics. But
dare I say the experienced runners probably are intuitively selecting it almost in that order. There is obviously a bit of a sweet spot between those who prefer the Alpha and those who prefer the Vaporfly as well, and there's different running attributes that tend to match it. They were pretty much on par, weren't they? Like the economy difference was insignificant. It was between 3 and 2.5, wasn't it? Between the Alpha Vapor and the Metaspeed Sky.
The really interesting thing I liked, I had a good close look at it, was he published the subject specific data. So just looking at like what each person, what their response was to each shoe. So there's a graph on there. It's open access. Anyone can sort of have a look at it. But yeah, it was just interesting because obviously you guys both prefer the Alpha than me. And looking at the subjects in this, it was what was it? It was something like half. So I think there was six runners were more economical in the Alpha, 5 were more economical in the Vaporfly, and 1 was no different.
Yeah.
So it's pretty even. Did
it show the stats of the athletes? Like, was it faster runners who preferred the Vapor or bigger runners?
I mean, the average study, there were 16-minute runners, weren't they, for 5K?
Yeah. They were all like pretty, like within like 1 minute, 16-minute 5K within 1 minute. So they're all pretty equal, sort of. But yeah, there wasn't sub analysis of if there was a slightly faster runner that preferred it. They were all pretty much the same level.
They were. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. But it was interesting.
For that.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting as well. Like you mentioned, Julian, there might be a difference with if you mentioned Adidas, the Adios Pro 2, and even the New Balance RC Elite 2. They probably gravitating towards closer to. But the study conclusion was the most interesting. It was sort of like this study shows that other brands haven't quite caught up with the Vaporfly in terms of, or Nike in terms of their in terms of their development and improving running economy.
Yeah, and that's just like what we're seeing in store too, based on sales. Like people who have had multiples come back to the Nike at the moment. I think the New Balance RC is changing that. We're seeing people move from the Nike to the New Balance quite often and enjoy it. But yeah,
do you guys know why other brands aren't using P-backs? Like
That's a
Reebok
good
use a little
question.
bit of P-backs, but like it just doesn't make sense because it clearly is the midsole compound that makes the difference. I'd say like maybe a little bit of the geometry, but it's clear the carbon plate isn't like the big factor in it. You need a good.
We're not
lightweight and
100% convinced on that yet. I mean, the variations, like the Adidas wasn't in the study. The Adidas is doing really well as well in terms of the athletes that wear. I mean, the athletes that are sponsored by Adidas are probably better anyway, so they're probably more likely to win races. But we just saw a Dola win the Berlin Marathon as well. I'm pretty sure is he Adidas as well?
Mm-hmm.
And the guy that came in second as well. So we're seeing the Adios Pro 2.
Dola wore the original sub 2 when he almost beat Kipchoge. Do you remember that? He wore that real minimal flat when he challenged Kipchoge.
Well, speaking about super shoes, wasn't today a great race to watch and just see how other factors are way more significant than the fucking shoes are? Like so we had Bikili running 206 something, wasn't he, or 205 maybe?
206, I think, yeah.
206, and then the winner was what, 205? And they're in super shoes and they're running slow. Why? Because it was a couple of degrees warmer and the pacing was a few seconds off. Okay, no one's out there talking about this, but if say it was a little faster, all of a sudden you get all the dickheads on Twitter talking about how this is cheating and it's bullshit and asterisks, whatever. But they go to ground. Like you can't have an argument one day and then just forget about it when it doesn't work in your favor.
Well, it's interesting. I guess when the race is really hot from the start, you probably can't go with those top-end world record paces unless you're in that environment, so the super shoe. But when the race becomes somewhat tactical, for example, the super shoe becomes less significant, doesn't it? So we see that in track racing all the time as well. And there's been people publishing stuff or trying to at least have opinions on the spikes, for example. We have no data if the spikes make a massive, massive difference, but we have anecdotes that they make a big difference, but we're not seeing we're not seeing middle distance records disappear in the 800 because, aerobic running economy isn't the biggest factor in middle distance running for 800s. Therefore, the shoe's not going to make as big a difference there. Maybe economy is more important in the 1500, the 5K and 10K. So maybe the Dragonfly makes a difference there. As soon as you grab more variables, the shoe becomes less significant, doesn't it?
Yep. But no one cares.
They're
easy to talk about. Easy.
Absolutely. Easier than drugs,
cheap.
mate.
Low hanging fruit, the shoe chat.
It is. Yeah. Yep. No, it certainly is. So that's an interesting thing for the paper though as well. And actually one thing I wanted to bring up, I saw an interesting tweet and they were talking a bit about how one day they think their super shoes will tend to regress in their popularity and we'll see sort of like people go back to more traditional shoes. And in saying that, we're seeing shoes like the Streak Fly that's being released in the next, I don't know if you know when it is, probably the next year or half a year. And Adidas building the Takumi Sen 8, which I think was associated with the female records in the Adidas show. They ran a 5K and 10K record. It's a similar shoe to the Adios Pro 2, but it's cut down by 6 mils. Similar substance and compound. So do you think people will find a happy medium? The shoe will come down a little bit below 39 mils from the Alpha Fly, and they'll just start to define preference from the athlete's movement patterns more so now?
I think like we're already seeing in the store a demand for traditional flats again because the super shoes have their limitations, and we see that when someone's running off road, like we want to go train on the dirt, but all of a sudden the exposed foam's getting torn open. We can't turn corners very well on the track. It's illegal, so it's too bouncy. Someone might be finding it too bouncy, or maybe it's just too expensive, and someone doesn't want to spend that money. So
but that must be hard. That must be hard for you guys because there's not many traditional flats on the market.
So hard. Yeah. Like we have a really tough time now finding a traditional flat that's any good. Like there's some expensive ones that aren't very good. Again, like in store now, we have the Takumi Sen from Adidas. It's probably the best ones sitting there. But we've had the Asics Hyperspeed in the past. It was quite good. But that was during the real super shoe trend or like the real purple patch. But going back, like the brands have just moved away from it. But there's a second category, like you've said, that might not be track legal, but are going to be a little bit more firm underfoot, and you can feel the ground more, and you can be a little bit more connected, and that's going to open up. And I think there is a space for that.
Well, it sounds like Tommy would be wearing that shoe in a heartbeat.
The shoe that's exciting me. I actually want to try the Puma Deviate Nitro Elite because you were saying, Julian, it's like a mini super shoe. It's like a lower stack, but people are saying it's like real soft. So I like soft, and it's as light as I think it's lighter than the Vaporfly by a few grams or something.
Yeah, a couple of grams. Yeah, I've had a pair. Like obviously, I got it when my knee was bad, so I gave it to a friend. And he ran a lap of the lake PB yesterday. So he's pretty
the
happy.
shoe then. The shoe gave him the PB.
Sure, yeah. I think he could have gone faster if he wore his other shoes, but he's happy with it. He doesn't know much about shoes, but he's happy with it. And I put it on and had a little walk around. I thought, this not as much foam as what I'm used to in a race shoe.
Yeah,
but it didn't it certainly felt like the foam was good.
Surely that there will be like the
well, that's P-back. That's P-backs, isn't it? That's P-backs. Yeah.
That's P-backs. I thought that was another one of the nitrogen infused ones, like the Brooks
it feels like
P-backs. Like that.
It really feels like P-backs.
Okay.
I've seen an image actually of a bigger Puma, like an Alpha style Puma or a Prime X style Puma. Yeah, I've just seen it's in the background of someone's shoe pile. So it's coming.
Good.
Surely there is going to be just on the traditional flats. Like traditional flats surely should just be, they should bring more in the market, just some lower stack stuff, but with the new foams. Like the Takumi Sen 8.
Definitely.
Yep.
But more, because that makes sense. Just
Dragonfly without spikes. Something like that.
Yeah, Dragonfly without spikes would be awesome.
Yeah.
I thought I kind of was hoping that's what the Hyperfly would be.
You mean a Streak Fly?
Streak Fly, yeah.
It's a bit more. It's a bit more.
Who knows what it's called?
Yeah.
It is. It's more super shoey than that. It's it's erred on the side of thickness compared to what we kind of thought it might be if they were going for like a track legal flat.
But
I did a session in the Mayflies the other week. I told you guys. I did a session in the Mayflies.
Couldn't have felt good.
My calves, I think I was just doing, what was I doing, like 3, 2, 1 minutes or something, and my calves were getting like sore and tight mid-session. If I did that session in the Dragons, they feel fine. So this is where wearing a traditional flat versus spike, the new spike is more protective than my marathon flat was. Ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, while we're on that as well, there was a new study released. They looked at teenage athletes training. They did a survey study with Swedish track athletes. They looked at injury risk within adolescence. And they started looking at spikes, and there was a bit of an association between kids that were training less than 6 hours per week over 2 weeks, so like 3 hours a week. But those kids who were wearing spikes quite often were like 8-fold likely to get more injuries. Whereas kids who obviously trained over 6 hours per fortnight, so just more training load, got the similar sort of effect as well. So I guess the question begs, how much do spikes play a role in terms of one, sustainability, and two, protective? You put this on Twitter and then all the barefoot people came out saying if you're not wearing spikes often enough, your risk of injury is going to be high. Whereas people were saying actually if you're wearing spikes often enough, you're going to get injured. So why would you do that? So people were coming from both ends. But now, like you mentioned there, the Dragonfly and the new super spikes are different to what they were historically. So, that study, whether that might be semi-void now in 2021 compared to what it was in 2015 when spikes were the victories were low, the Matumbos were relatively low, but now spikes have more substance than, as you said, than a Mayfly. So how much, preparing for track season now, this becomes a common question. How often do you need to wear your spikes to prepare for track running but not get injured?
Well, let's throw it to Tommy, because you are probably preparing to a degree for potentially a track season.
Yeah, well, yeah, hopefully. I think now more than ever, it's safer to wear spikes if you're using one of these new spikes with the new foams. I even think even compared to say the Streak. What are they? The Streak 8s? Were they? Is it up to Streak 8?
7.
Streak 7.
7.
7, I think.
I almost feel like when you're doing VO2 max stuff, so you're doing short reps where you're not really making much heel contact, and you're really up on the forefoot. Having like softness for me, so like the Dragonfly feels like more protective than a Streak, or like I said, the Mayfly, just because it's this new foam. So.
But do you really need to wear it for? Do you really need to wear it for workouts and not to be able to handle it on race day and not get injured? Do you need to train?
What's the alternative? So the alternative would be wearing like more of a super shoe.
Absolutely, or just wear a traditional flat, I suppose.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think some of the traditional flats aren't any more protective than the new spikes.
Yeah. But yeah. So I mean, would there be any case now in 2021? Would you ever wear a traditional spike? Like I don't know if they exist anymore, Julian. Do you sell traditional spikes anymore, or is it they're all super spikes?
Yeah, because a little athletics athlete coming in who's in the under 12s, they're not going to buy a Dragonfly or an Air Zoom Victory.
But unfortunately, this is the issue. This is the study reveals that these kids who wear their spikes too often get more injuries. I mean, then you're suddenly weighing up a spike that costs maybe $80, but then they go to the physio and spend $80. So why didn't you spend $160 and buy a mini super shoe? You would have saved some money.
Availability is one reason
true.
That the shoes go really quickly, and also in that size that a lot of these junior athletes, they're like, if you see the release of these spikes, you say a certain store might get 50 pairs, but the size curve sort of goes like this, where on one end is there might be a couple of pairs of junior sizes, couple of pair of the big size 13, 14 hoofs, and then in the middle you've got 8, 9, 10, 11. And so out of that training group, maybe 2 people get that spike. And the rest, they use a traditional spike that they could buy 8, like that they could buy for $100, whatever. And I mean, their parents are happy. Their coaches are happy because they're in spikes. The coaches doesn't really know about spikes. So as long as it's a spike they can use on the track and do jumping in or whatever, they're happy. And so it is probably there's probably not as much enough education around how to use them, because we see kids that buy their spike on the Friday night, put it on Saturday morning and spend the whole day in it. They walk around everywhere. They do every event. They jog it beforehand. They run down to the canteen wearing their spike. That's the problem, probably.
So some of these super spikes, for example, make sense, don't they? Even at junior level. Like, I mean, I know there's probably some, people against it. Perhaps maybe wearing the spike itself is going to, reduce physical attributes you can develop by wearing less shoe. But I guess if you can train more in them and reduce risk of injury, the more is more important, isn't it? You can do more work in them. So, I mean, but there aren't many available outside of the Nike range. I've got a prototype Asics. I know I saw a photo or a video on Instagram from, you sent to us, Julian, on Ellie wearing the New Balance that are coming out, and they looked fantastic. They looked like about 24.5 mils of midsole. They looked a bit more than a Dragonfly, and they look like something I'd want to put on and wear for 5 to 10 Ks.
Yeah, it's going to change soon.
That was good.
Yeah, it's going to change. There's going to be a few more in the market. It's just like the super shoe thing. There'll be some competitors, and no one will go back to the traditional area until.
When you're talking about like injury risk and shoe wear, this is where I find like when I was a junior and I had like all my coaches, that was they were really helpful in that situation, like helping you decide what shoe to wear for what session. So I assume it's harder if you're coaching someone not face to face, but if you're down there with your athletes, what do you guys reckon? I mean, I think that's
you must have some educated coaches, Tom, because we see coaches who have no idea about how to prescribe shoes for. I mean, if someone has 10 by 400, they're 12 years of age, they're probably better off wearing a pair of racing flats for that sort of stuff as opposed to wearing a pair of spikes. And if they've got a race coming up 2 days down the track, but they're not aware of that at the time, and you need to have someone suggesting one way or the other until you either learn one way or the other. Someone tells you, or you find out the hard way, perhaps, or you survive it. Yeah.
Well, talk to your shoe salesman; they'll help you.
Is that your job?
It's our job. It's what we want to do. Or you.
That's true. People don't come to us until they're injured, though. So we're not preventative. We should be preventative, but we're not preventative. So
I always tell people the best way to prevent a foot injury is if you're getting sore calves start protecting before your foot starts hurting.
Yeah.
It's a good proxy for foot load.
It is. Julian, what are you going to wear when you return back to running? Well, have you returned back to any running yet?
I did one session. I did a 30-second on, a minute walk. I did that 11 times around the block with so that was actually
what shoes got the privilege of this?
I needed something super
Vaporfly.
simple. I should have. I didn't want to walk in the Vaporfly. That's embarrassing. I wore the Peg 37.
Yeah.
Because I had the Kipchoge model, green and red and white, and looked so clean. And I've been eyeing it off for like the last month as I walk past it every day and go, oh, that shoe looks like it wants to be running. And so it got some 30-second reps. Felt fine. Of course it felt fine. They were 30-second reps. But I've been in the gym a bit. And so I brought my gym shoe to show you all.
Oh, is that a Metcon?
This one years ago. This is a Metcon. I think this is a Metcon 1. Maybe.
No, surely not 1. It looks too new.
It's pretty old. How do you tell?
I think it'd be on the sock liner or in the tab.
So this is from, if you look, you can see the date that it was produced. I got some terrible light here. Oh, yeah, it's not that old. 2019. That's not that old.
That's not old.
So the idea behind the Metcon was it is a gym shoe. It's sort of designed for someone who's doing like CrossFit F45 type workouts. Underneath it, you can sort of see it's like a real sticky outer sole. So if you're doing jumping, like hurdles, sled pushes, that kind of stuff, then you've got a lot of grip. It's actually really stable. You can sort of see at the back here, it's got this like flaring. So your foot's not going to roll one way or the other because it's really quite solid out the back of the heel. Again, so if you're jumping, that's where you're going to get the stability from. Pretty strong heel cup. This midsole wrap keeps your foot well in the shoe. Again, side to side stuff. And the upper is so tough because people used to climb ropes and that in CrossFit or whatever. And so this is like to stop you from wearing your shoe out, all this extra rubber. Inside it has this inner sole. Like, it's amazing how much thought goes into just a gym shoe. But at the back, it's it's an EVA. It's a hard foam at the back, and at the front, it's really soft. And so if you're squatting in the shoe, you have substance underneath your heel, and so you can get more of a wedge.
Julian, I have to tell you this. I had a patient the other week who requested an orthomechanical device to go into their Metcon. And I said, mate, I have to see what Metcon you have, because I know if you pull the insole out of the shoe, it's the whole shoe. It's the midsole, isn't it?
Yeah.
I reckon the Kobe Bryants used to be the same. They used to be identical. You pulled the insole out, it was like a Lunaron midsole, but the insole was the Lunaron midsole.
Yeah.
So you pull it out, and then suddenly it was just rubber on the foam. I said, mate, you can't put something orthomechanical in here unless we reinforce it with lots and lots of foam, because this is your whole shoe. We take this out, you can't. You're standing on rubber. So
you are standing on rubber. Exactly. There's no foam. So through the shoe here, this is just full. This is like, how do I show it? You can just push in. You can just do whatever you want with that.
Are you selling this shoe?
No, we're not selling it. But I just got it because I was in the gym a bit, and I mean, I see the new ones come out. I'm like, I could get one of them, and then I realized
they come with heel lifts, don't they? As well,
they do.
heights.
Yeah,
they do. Yeah, I think they're like 8 mil heel lifts. They're pretty big. And
you got to do that. Like, it's got to be a transition. That lifting. You know how CrossFit works. Some days they do Metcons, and some days they do compound lifting, and they wear lifting shoes. So it's like a halfway transition. You go from a 2-inch stack from a lifting shoe to no stack at all. You wonder why people get Achilles insertional tendonitis. So,
there's people that run in this thing, and this is not a shoe to run in. Like, they don't change their shoes when they go to the gym or they do their CrossFit, and then they got like 800 meter reps for the day, part of the workout. This
sounds like a netballer. No offense to netballers who listen to this show, but netballers just love wearing their netball shoes for running. So,
yeah. All right, Nita, that's all me. What are you up to? What are you wearing?
Mate, I strained a hamstring about 3 weeks ago in a duathlon, so in a multi-sport event, which is disappointing, in a run leg, in a pair of Vaporflies, by the way. So
serves you right for doing a duathlon.
Yeah, no, but I've been back. I'm back to about 60 Ks of running, and the shoe I've been enjoying the most for volume has been actually two. I've been swapping between the Vongo 5, but also going back to the Nova Blast 2. And maybe I didn't prefer the Nova Blast 2 as much as the original model. I preferred having the higher pitch in the first model. So, and the second model has like an 8mm pitch, but a bit more in the forefoot, I think. So, yeah. And long story short, I've been loving it. Just took a couple of miles to run into it as well. And today I trialed 80-minute run in the Rebel 2, and I don't think that's built for a long time, Tom. I don't know how you ran 2.5 hours in it. I think it's built for like that 30 to 60-minute run for most people. With a couple of surges or an up-tempo pace. But besides that, like I did a couple runs. I got given a ASICS GT 2000, the 10th version, which I think you guys get in stock pretty soon, Julian, or do you have them already?
Selling it. They've had it for a few weeks.
Yeah. And at first, I reckon when Jason from ASICS came into the clinic to show us the shoe, it was really soft in the forefoot. Like I think there was a bit more substance to it than the Kayano, but it was a different foam. But when I got my size 10 and been going for a run, compared to every other shoe, it feels very ASICS traditional and very firm. So it's hard to wear. So I passed that shoe off to my nephew already, just as a bit of a jogging shoe for him. Christmas present, yeah. So I don't really know what to say. Like I know a lot of people fall in love with that shoe, but that shoe, the foam, that's the best that foam's ever been though on that shoe, I think. It's just the geometry of the shoe. I mean, they've taken the trussix out of it and they've used what do they call, light truss or whatever it is, as their midfoot. And it's a bit more stable via surface area, and a bit softer, but it just still feels firm. And I'm just not sure if it's relative to other shoes I've worn. And, someone asked a question, one of the listeners asked a question whether foams can go bad as they get older as well. And so I put on an old Vaporfly 4 the other day, and I put it on. And I haven't worn the shoe. I actually bought the shoe from you, Julian, back in 2018, I reckon. It was like the red knitted fly knit upper, and I thought, oh, geez, this feels firm. And then I put it on compared to the Alpha Fly, and that's why it felt firm. So I couldn't tell you if the foam's getting old, but all the shoes are getting so soft now, and every shoe I wear is it's just feeling too hard. So wearing a Nova Blast, wearing a Rebel 2, but surprisingly, I find the Vongo 5 really soft in the forefoot. So I don't know if you guys find the same.
Yeah, forefoot's nice and soft.
So I'm going to let this cat out. Can you hear this cat?
Yeah, I tried to wear the GT 2000. I only got about...
I thought it was the baby.
I only got about 80K into it and I had to give up.
What, which one, sorry?
That damn cat, man. Jesus.
The GT. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the GT 2000.
You gave up on it?
Yeah.
You normally like average shoes.
Yeah,
I actually have a question for you, Tom. You've been wearing Reebok still?
Soft. It was not soft.
Have you been wearing Reebok at all?
I have, mate. I have. I've stopped mentioning it because you just give me shit every time I mention it. So, yeah, I've worn it a little. Yeah.
Yep. Do you know what shoe
it's
that
good.
I've worn
it's not
this
like...
Oh, so you go.
No, go for it.
The one shoe that I've worn this last month that I've really enjoyed, I've worn it for a couple like rep sessions, getting back into strides to rehab the hamstring, and did some 300s in it on Friday night. It was the Rebel 1. I thought the Rebel 1 was a shoe that was pretty responsive, had a pretty good grip. The upper was relatively light. The Rebel 2 and the Rebel 1 are very different. And the Rebel 1 has sort of I built for short reps, I reckon. It wasn't really built for long running. And the Rebel 2 has definitely evolved into a shoe of a bit of, dare I say, falls into a bit of nothing category. You can jog in it, you can tempo in it, you can do some reps in it, and it's a bit of an in-between shoe. It's probably easier to sell, probably, Julian, you reckon, or I don't know.
We've gone okay with both, actually, because the shoe does feel good on the foot. And so that's a normally good test of if it'll sell or not, just straight up. But you're right. Like if someone wants a fast shoe, they buy a fast shoe. If someone wants a safer shoe, they buy a bigger, more cushioned, stiffer shoe. But that's okay. Like there are people that want those in-between shoes. And there's more than I thought, because I don't want that shoe. Like I don't want an in-between shoe. But I'm starting to work out after 5 years of having a shoe store, people don't always want what I want.
Tom is a pretty good example.
It's blowing my mind, but there's other people out there in this world so
people that like Mizuno.
Yeah, like Bree used to jog in the the Tempo Next Percent, and I just I despise that shoe. And she runs in it and loves it, and
a lot of people
adores
like it.
But I could never get it. Like I'm surprised you don't like it, Tom.
To be honest, I haven't got a pair. I wouldn't know.
Too expensive.
But the Rebel V2, it's turned from, I think, more of a traditional session shoe to an actual, for me, it's more of a jogging shoe. I wouldn't really use it as a set. I use it for one session and it was okay, but it's not a session shoe for me. It's just either short, easy run for a bit of fun because it's soft and light, or I can do long runs in it because I can tolerate it well. It's comfy, but I reckon for most people, it's just a good lightweight, soft, short, easy shoe if they just want a bit of fun on their shorter.
I got runs. That's enough on the Rebel 2. That thing's dominated the chat tonight. I don't wear it, so I can't comment on it. I've got a question for you guys. If a patient would come in to see you and they come in for shoe advice, they don't have any injuries, and they said, I do a lot of walking. What should I look for in a shoe to do walking in versus a shoe that someone would run in? Firstly, Tom, what advice would you provide straight up to that patient?
So I would still suggest a running shoe, but it wouldn't be because there just aren't. I would say the materials and the construction of a running shoe is for most people more suitable for walking than some of the walking shoes in terms of just comfort and and there's not that many shoes marketed as a walking shoe. How many are there? Are there that many?
No.
So you have more options. So the person can try on more options of shoe because they're in the running shoe market. They can try on a number of shoes that would match their walking gait and comfort walking. But the thing is, the problem is now with a lot of these running shoes that are high stack, really soft foams, is they are then a bit of a risk for walking. So I would say probably the walking shoe is more of a traditional running shoe. We lost Nida.
No, we're back.
He's back.
Hey, mate. So I would just say they just got to be caution now with the running shoes and which style of running shoe. It would probably make more sense to be one of the more traditional stack, not too high and not too soft.
Yep.
And just keep it as simple as that. And they just try on a range.
I remember going back to some of the SMA conferences, Sports Medicine Australia conferences, when ASICS were they're still the key sponsor for those events. And back then they had the Gel Ballarat, I think it was, and the Gel Melbourne. They were pure walking shoes, and off memory they were lower stack generally. I think they might be lower pitch as well. They were traditionally leather, like a leather upper, Julian. They weren't anything sort of synthetic. And so they were a bit heavier. And the Melbourne was specifically built for people with medial knee OA, trying to make the outside of the shoe a little bit denser to try and reduce medial knee load, which I guess the concept of them trying to make them lower pitch and lower stack probably does paint the picture of what you would use for a walking shoe. You probably don't need as much substance for it, but they still just didn't feel any more comfortable. They probably felt less comfortable than a running shoe did. And the issue is that comfort ends up selling the shoe, doesn't it? So, while there's probably a mechanical reasoning for saying walking and running is different, I don't think you're able to use those justifications to the general consumer to be able to sell a shoe that's a bit different either. So it became difficult. So those shoes come and go relatively often. In the hiking world, it's probably different. Merrell probably sell a lot of walking shoes. They're low pitch, low stack. They're closer to the ground, walking through the trails, but so are trail running shoes as well. So, So, I still think, traditionally people who are walking for long periods of time, I think the same things exhibited for running. If you're a bigger person, you put more shoe on your foot. If you're a less person, you don't need as much shoe on your foot, but it's usually a running shoe because there's more options, there's more comfort. And if you like leather, well, most running shoes that are really popular sort of fall into the leather category, like the Addiction Walker, the Dyad, they come in leather. I think the Saucony, is it the Echelon as well? It's that's a walker. So, these populations usually for people who are a bit, elderly, trying to keep themselves active and reduce metabolic disease, and the shoe just accommodates a bit more body mass, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it sort of fits I guess the aesthetic that kind of customer might be looking for as well. They don't want it. It's almost like they're catering for someone who purposely doesn't want to look athletic by putting these big leather uppers on them. And Like that is most of the time if we have a walker come in and they're not really concerned with aesthetic at all, which is like if you're going to exercise, you don't really want leather. Your foot won't breathe. You get very sweaty.
Absolutely.
And it's heavy, so you're wearing a heavy shoe and you're still lifting your foot all those times. So,
but if you walk through the grass, Julian, you don't get we don't get a wet foot.
Yeah, people are so concerned with a waterproof shoe. It's like every third customer we have to chat about why the shoe's not waterproof. And sure, there are some waterproof shoes out there, but it's not as important as you need. And we're seeing a lot of hikers now transition to trail shoes, like trail running shoes, and they can't believe how light they are and the grip they still get and the cushion they get. Like they're hiking shoes are so hard, so uncomfortable and heavy, and they have to carry them in packs if they're like traveling, and they don't dry because they're waterproof. So inside them, it just get clammy.
And in Australia, that makes sense. A different story if you're walking in Nepal, right? But you know, if people that are walking in Nepal are usually, especially right now, not walking in Nepal right now if you're from Australia. So, so it makes sense. You can probably people are trying to be a little bit more. They're purchasing related to comfort, aren't they?
Yeah. And once someone in one of those walking groups gets a shoe that like they're happy with, say a trail shoe. Like a Hoka trail shoe, like they're just so popular with those longer bushwalkers now. It just spreads, and then you'll never see them go back to a trail, like a hiking shoe again. Never, ever. Unless they're, like you said, in Tassie and they're knee deep in mud for half the trip. That's probably when
absolutely.
You use one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
All right.
Oh, good. Well, that's pretty good, guys. What do you got planned this week, Tom?
I'd probably what have I got? No, nothing. Just I'll probably have a bit of a cruisy week this week, training wise. I've built up to like I think I've built up to 185k this week. So I'll probably hover around this or dip down a little bit for a week or two.
Yeah, you don't want to get criticised by Julian tomorrow either, so you better just take it easy.
So critical. Jeez,
I like barbing him. I like barbing you.
I think it's fair to
I bit hard. Yeah.
I think it's fair to say we're both pretty envious of what you're doing at the moment.
Yeah, fucker. If you get injured, then you lose. We lost all three of us.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
You're the only one holding us up here, making us look good.
And Julian, your Breeze due Friday. Is that right?
Due on Friday, so this will probably come out Monday. Yeah, I've got a treadmill picking it up tomorrow, so
nice.
That if I have to run at home, then I will.
Hey, shoes feel different on treadmills, mate.
Yeah. Well, like better, you reckon? Or worse?
Yeah, I think you could just, that's the sort of shoe you probably can wear a New Balance Rebel 2 for 2 hours and not really be too concerned by it.
Maybe I better get one.
What is that?
Yeah, maybe.
They look good.
I got to tell you a story though that now you're going to be a dad, Julian. I hope it all goes pretty comfortably. But like Zara, like when we're changing nappy, she's at 13 months old now. The last few months she's been really frustrated by it. Like she'll just yell at you when you're changing a nappy. So like one of her change tables is under like my shoe collection. And so every time I grab a shoe and I give her a shoe and she just holds it and she sort of like either chews on the laces or looks around it and I'll talk her through the shoe. Anyway, this morning, the first time ever, I gave her a shoe, and out of all the shoes I grabbed a 5280. They're like completely white and like mesh upper, and took the nappy off. It was real bad. It's the first time she's thrown the shoe, and it's landed straight in the nappy.
Oh no!
And that shoe, the upper fell in the nappy, the midsole fell in the nappy as well. And I've already washed it once after a cross country, like in the wash. You shouldn't do that. And the midsole felt firmer after, and I washed it again today, and the midsole feels. It's terrible. It's done. The shoe's done. Just trying to educate a young kid on footwear, and she threw it in the shit. So 5280. Let's hope the new LDX spike from New Balance is more accepted. So
why isn't she changing her nappies herself?
The worst part at 1 year, mate, they start eating food, so the nappies become a bit more interesting as well. So,
mate, it's like it's a wrestling match to just change a nappy. It's
especially when they get a bit older, no doubt. So, yeah. Best of luck though, mate. We're thinking of you and Bree as well. I hope it goes all really well. So.
Thank you. Thanks, boys.
Take care, guys. Good to chat
Cool.
shoes again. You guys have a good week.
See you later.
You too,
See you
mate.
later.
See ya.
Cheers.